Okay, yeah, it's recording. Hi, Larry. So it's 3:30 now. We'll give just one more moment to see if other folks are joining. Hi, Jessica. Okay, so we'll get started and folks will join in. And I want to just warmly welcome everybody to the call and give you a sense of the objectives for today. So we're going to provide an overview and background on the art of hosting training and begin being a convener and host for learning, and hopefully connect this a little bit for the ACHs around how this is connected to being a backbone organization who is a convener and bringing together different collaborators to work together on complex challenges. We'll provide an overview of the community of practice that will also be going on after we complete the trainings, talk a little bit about some pre-work that we would be inviting you to be doing. And we just ask folks who have joined the call, if you're joining from a computer, if you wouldn't mind just putting your name into the chat box, which at the bottom of the Zoom, you'll see something that says more. If you click on that, there you'll see a chat pop up. If you could just put your name and where you are. Into the chat, we can get a sense of who's here. Great, thank you everybody who's doing it. And then also just to give you a sense of how Zoom is working, you can see at the top, there's a few pictures. We're doing a screen share, so you can't see everybody on the call, but if you wanna move your visual so you can see who's on here at the blue circle at the top, you can click on that and see other folks here on the call. So welcome everyone. And then if you need to mute, at the bottom left-hand corner of Zoom, there's a mute function, and to start and stop video as well at the bottom. Does anybody have any technical questions before we continue? Okay.
Just making sure everybody has found the chat box and can.
Yeah. Great. Thank you and welcome everyone. And now Anna Maria is going to host us in a moment of
silliness.
The best thing ever.
So we all have days, you know, that go up and down. Our mood sometimes is, you know, very alive. Other times we're kind of, you know, just moving through our day. And I found that this exercise just cheers us up immediately. So the idea here is to be silly. That's it. And so we are gonna call out little elements that have brought a simple pleasure or a surprising pleasure to our day. So, and then when somebody says something, everybody reacts, you know, with our full microphone, with a cheer as if it were the best thing ever, like really exaggerating, like, yay, this is awesome, this is the best thing ever, as if it had never happened before. And so you'll see the effect it has on us. So who would like to start?
I can start. For me, the best thing ever is music.
Yay!
So we're gonna get really specific here. We want to know like something that happened today that was the best thing ever. That you know something. Maybe you had something with your day today about music, and you put on a good song. So we're gonna repeat it again. So was there a specific song you listened to?
No, I did. Sometimes it catches you off guard. You have to listen, turn everything off, and just listen to the lyrics. And you're like, wow, I really went somewhere. That was the best thing. So.
Yay!
I'll go. This is Sue. Today, you know, for being specific, I got an unexpected kind of large check in the mail. And getting money in the mail when you weren't expecting was like amazing.
Yay!
Yeah.
This is Sue Kincaid in Fresno, and for me, it was a phone call from my daughter who's, she's 29 and she's just started working in nonprofit work about a year and a half ago. And she called me, she had met with her sponsor for her big annual event, and she talked about where they're gonna have the event and how well the meeting went. So I was really excited for her.
Oh, nice. Yay.
I can go next if no one else is going. Today, the best thing ever is our ice cream feed. We're launching a new program and gaining support in the community with businesses around our new adventure, and we've invited them all over for ice cream.
Yay!
Come on in.
Yeah. That's awesome.
Everyone that, if you want to wait. There's a second. Are they on here? Oh, I got it.
Deborah, were you going to speak?
Oh, no, I'm sorry. I
that's-
just want to let you know that I'm on, but I'm on by phone, but I can see the PowerPoint.
Oh, good. Okay, well, welcome. I'm glad to hear.
Thank you.
I can share something.
Okay.
This morning I took it easy because I traveled yesterday, so I took it easy and I allowed my cat to give me a full massage. Both of us. Yay!
Well,
Okay, maybe one more. Can we get one more pleasure? The best thing ever?
I don't know if you guys can hear me. Melina Castellan with the Wellness Center.
Yes.
Hi. So the best thing that happened to me, well, no, today I forgot my lunch, and then I got here and I realized there was a fundraiser that I had already paid for, so I actually had lunch. So that was my highlight of the day today. I didn't have to worry about it.
that's awesome. Great.
Wonderful. Thank you, everybody, for playing along. And now I would like to give a warm welcome to Carolyn Wang Kong from the Blue Shield Foundation as she helps us kick off the event here on this call with the vision of the work that's before us. So welcome, Carolyn.
Great. Thank you, Dana. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay.
I'm good.
Great, great. Well, this is very, very exciting. I feel like Sue and Dana and I have been talking about this idea for months, because we probably have. So just a little bit about our foundation. So Blue Shield of California Foundation, many of you probably know us as one of the catchy funders, and we've historically really been in the healthcare safety net space. And earlier this year, we made this pivot towards prevention, and really prevention in two areas, in poor health and also prevention of domestic violence, as our two sort of big funding areas. And so after more than a decade of working in those systems to really make change, we've seen a lot of great progress. And we've also seen a lot of integration in terms of care and services, and more focuses on the whole person or the whole survivor. So we've accomplished a lot. But what I would say is that when we made this shift in January, we realized that our North Star for our foundation isn't to create a great healthcare system. Our North Star is to really create healthy and safe communities. And so if we're going to do that, that means we have to work outside of the systems that we're used to. And instead, we've got to engage different sectors and stakeholders, like many of you all are doing through the catchy work. And really working with those sectors that have influence over the drivers of poor health and well-being. what we've also really realized and centered is that we need to engage the communities who are most impacted by the issues that we're trying to alleviate. And we've heard this, I think the last place I heard this was in Stockton, but I've heard it in other catchy sites as well, is that community is the one who can actually pinpoint the problems and activate the solutions. So that's what really kind of drove our thinking around doing this work, because the other big aha for us in learning from you all and the catchy work is that engaging communities can be hard. There can be distrust, there's power differences, there's differences in culture in terms of our systems culture and then culture of communities. But through this work, we're also seeing how important it is to engage community. And so that means beyond just community engagement, but how do you partner with activated communities? How do you help give a space for agency and leadership to actually co-design and co-implement solutions? Because what we've seen is that once you do that, only when you do that do you actually have that shared stewardship between systems and communities, and that's when the solutions that you come up with really do stick. So as part of our Collaborating for Healthy Communities initiative, we're really, really pleased to be supporting Sue and Dana and the whole team at the Public Health Institute in offering this Art of Hosting training, which you'll hear more about today. But really the goal for this is to help us grow our collective ability to lead in inclusive ways. At the foundation, we've seen that distributed leadership in particular is critical to really creating a resilient fabric within multi-sector collaborations. When you have that distributed leadership, that's when really, things are clicking, and when you have organizational change, you feel that less, right? Because your leadership is spread across multiple entities, and you have a resilience to the work that you're doing that really is important. That fabric really extends to and includes lots of different stakeholders, including different sectors and residents as well. So what we're hoping for as a result of this training, and why we're really supporting it, is that we want to really understand and support the spread of the mindsets and the tools that will actually help reinforce this resiliency, right? We want to be able to provide tools and approaches that will make it easier to engage diverse stakeholders and residents in your work, and increase the voice of community within your collaborative work as well. And I know we've made some progress there, and I think this is only going to really bolster and support you even further. The last thing I'll just say is, at the foundation, we've been talking a lot in all of our work about the need to really center the lived experience in our strategies. That really speaks to two of our key values around equity and partnership. And so we're very grateful that you've dialed in today. We're really hoping that your engagement in this offering, it won't only advance your ability to do this work, but it also help us learn from what works and how to spread this type of resource, as well as we think about how to continue to support collaborations in the field, particularly around health and violence. So with that, I'll pass it back to you, Dana.
Great, thank you so much, Carolyn. And so we're going to take a moment now to hear from the team and give you just a small introduction of us, so that you have a sense of the team and a bigger perspective. So Ana Maria.
Hi. So I've been in this work of leadership training and coaching for about 13 years, and I come in it from two perspectives. One, I have studied systems and issues of sustainability and social change. And then two, also from the perspective of inner development and growth as a coach. I'm delighted to be among you, and it's great to hear from the orientation of the Blue Shield Foundation how you are really building from the ground up the leadership capacity for more self-governance.
Thank you, Ana Maria. And then Cristania, if you could please introduce yourself.
Hi, I'm Cristania De Leon. My calling or interest around community inclusion really revolves around myself being a young woman of color and seeking to ensure that people like me or from other marginalized communities are included in decision making and in power building to best meet the needs of our communities. So this really informs my work with the Public Health Institute, where I support our strategies around community engagement, policy change, and inclusion in our shared work around health equity.
Thank you. I'm also going to just ask anybody who's not speaking, if you don't mind muting, there's a little bit of feedback. And then Sue Grinnell, please introduce yourself.
Great, thanks, Dana. Good afternoon, Sue Grinnell, and I'm with the Public Health Institute. And for me, my calling is, I really have this incredibly, almost a curse, sense of empathy, and it's really, really important to me to understand perspectives and where people are coming from, so that as we're working with community, we are working with them from a space where we're understanding where they're coming from. So this offering, I think, is really valuable and really useful in our ability to do that.
Great, thank you, Sue. Oh, go ahead.
Is Brian on? Brian, are you with us?
Excuse me just a moment. Yes, hi, I'm here.
Yes,
Hi,
great, great. Do you want to just introduce yourself?
Yeah, sure. I'm Brian Raymond. I'm a new employee with the Public Health Institute and the Public Health Innovation Lab. I previously worked at Kaiser Permanente in the Institute for Health Policy, and I have some experience working in the area of healthy eating and active living policy work.
Great. Thanks, Brian.
Sure.
Thank you. And my name is Dana Perlman, and I'm extremely interested, my calling in this work is to, how do we best create learning and leaderful communities so that everybody who has a care within the community is enabled and empowered to actually go out and make the changes that they think are needed. There's a lot of complex challenges happening in the world around us, and so it's going to take all of us to figure out the best solutions to these challenges. And so how do we create the conditions for anybody and everybody to be a part of those solutions and enabling that? And in terms of the work, you know, I've gotten to work on a lot of amazing projects, specifically with Sue, also a lot with Anna Maria, and just focusing in on specific complex issues. We did a program in Napa County on food insecurity, helping groups come together in peer learning labs to figure out the questions that they have around complex challenges and how to best address them. And we'll share more about our own backgrounds as well as we move into the training in the future. So that's the introductions. There's also another team member, Amelia Terrapin, who isn't able to be with us here on the call today, but she's the creator of something called Mobius Method, and she teaches systems thinking through movement, and different scientific concepts. So, you know, it's one thing for us to be in conversation and talking through what it is we think we know, but to actually have the experience through movement and through our bodies, we think that's where learning really takes root. And so she brings with her a number of amazing technologies and tools that we'll use in the training to support the integration of learning. And so that's our team. We're going to take a moment now to do one of the practices that are a part of the Art of Hosting Conversations That Matter, and that is what's called a check-in. And it's an opportunity for us to share what it is that's going on in the work that we're doing and to help center everybody around the purpose of the call. And so we're not going to have an opportunity to have everybody on the call check in just because there's a lot of people here. But what we'd like for you to do is to answer a few questions and to put it in the chat box for those of you who have that function and are on video. And so the questions here are on the screen, and I'll read them to you. So if you can put them in the chat box, and then we want to ask maybe one or two people to share with us their response to that question. We probably have time for one response. So the questions are, how would you describe your ACH current focus in regards to community engagement, inclusion, or participation? What's alive for you now, or what are you most excited about in regards to those subject matters? of community engagement, inclusion, or participation? And what pain points or urgencies or questions are you in the middle of regarding inclusion? Take a moment and you can answer one or all of those questions, and please put them in the chat box. And if anybody feels ready to share, we would love to hear from somebody to just report out on these questions. And I'm also going to ask again if people could mute, because there's still a little bit of feedback happening. Thank you. So we'd love to just hear from somebody. What are the pain points, urgencies, or questions that you have that you're in the middle of regarding community inclusion? So here's Larry from Riverside. There's been little direct contact with community residents. What has been done comes through CBOs. And Justin's reporting homelessness and housing. We lost 2,000 homes in the last year. Justin's in Lake County. Our community collaborative Hope Rising met last evening and committed to a plan to address homelessness. Great. Thank you, Justin. Okay, last call. Anybody want to chime in on our check-in? Okay, well, if you don't mind still filling in the chat box, we'd love to hear more from you.
Dana, there's another one from Napa, Nicole. Hi, Nicole. They've just, whoa, it moved really quick. They've just completed their second of 3 meetings to get community feedback on their community health assessment. The meetings have gone well, but at the same time, multiple other things are happening in the community in which community engagement has been sought. So we're concerned about community engagement fatigue, especially if action isn't taken.
Great.
That's important, yeah. And then Sue has reported as well. And this is exciting. I just want to share this because, you know, of the work happening in Fresno, they're going to be implementing community level learning labs in order to develop community informed strategies for their group and program recommendations, and that they're undergoing a needs assessment and CHIP with the health department, and that they're hosting ABCD, which is asset-based community development. And like, how do we integrate community residents into the governance? Big question.
Great, thank you. And then Sue, I'm gonna just invite you to set some context here for us.
Great. So I'm just going to kind of do a high-level overview, and then the team members are going to go through. So this work that we're doing has 3 parts to it. So there's the 2 trainings that we're going to be offering, and Ana Maria is going to speak to those. And then the second part of it, after the training, we will be inviting those that are interested to participate in a community of practice around this issue of community and civic engagement. So it's just an opportunity for deeper learning. And one of the things I think that's really important, and it's the third part of this, is how do we tell our story? So along the way, we are going to be finding ways to documenting, either through video, podcast, briefings, about what you're all learning, because it's really important to share. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Ana Maria.
All right. Well, thank you. I'm going to tell you a bit about what we're up to in this training, that to give you a larger framework than art of hosting, as art of hosting is an important part, probably the major part, but let's zoom out a little bit on what we're trying to do. So basically, many of you probably have seen that leadership models are changing. They are becoming more collective. So it's going from putting a lot of expectations on one individual or a few individual and opening that up to we're all leaders. We can all play leadership roles in different circumstances to harness all the collective talent and intelligence that is in a community, that is in any given group of people. And we can call that this shift is going from heroic leadership to post-heroic. So that means that instead of having the world be on your shoulders and you having to carry the full weight and have to have all the solutions, it's understanding not one individual can have all the solutions. We need to build a collective that can work together to together find the solutions. So a new model of leadership is being born where the leader is more a facilitator, a host, which is why we are placing so much emphasis on hosting, the art of hosting, so that these communities are full of members who can host conversations that matter, who can facilitate spaces for all the others to share their wisdom and their solutions to different problems, or even just their needs, whatever is going on. But also this new leadership model involves us all to become more mindful of our own selves, our own needs, our own well-being, and engaging in practices that support that so that we can be more attuned to ourselves and to each other. So mindfulness is becoming an important practice to all cultivate. Also embodiment. So being more in our bodies are a huge source of intelligence and also of building collective attunement and movement and excitement, motivation. And finally, our minds becoming systems thinkers, so that, and systems thinking is a team sport. So it's really important to engage in systems thinking together, because people have different perspectives on the system, and the system can be a community, right? So let's say we're trying to understand what the community is going through, that's the system. And so to really understand it, we hope to have as many people as possible to see the different views that there are. So we learn more and more how to do that together and learn together about what's going on. So out of all that, the needs we're seeing of what is needed for leaderful communities, this new type of leadership, we've created a competency model of participatory leadership that has 5 competencies. One of them is facilitation, which is covered by the art of hosting. But we also have vision, the importance of having a shared vision, community building, the importance of the understanding of what builds community, what builds a sense of we're in this together. Communication, the capacity to tackle different kinds of conversations, difficult conversations, resolve conflict. And self-mastery, which is the capacity for me to regulate myself. And am I speaking too much? Am I not participating enough? Like really tuning into what's going on for me so that I can be a good participant and member of my community. So out of all of that, out of the training, what can you expect? What are the results that we together are striving for? First and foremost is to enhance trust. Trust is our most important jewel that we're taking care of. Well, maybe jewel is not the right metaphor, but what we're cultivating, our sacred plant that we're watering and that we're providing lots of nutrient. Trust is what will allow us to have these conversations that matter, to be honest, to voice our needs, to generate ideas, to commit to action. All of that comes from a deep trust. And so in the training, we explain and we build trust in a variety of ways. We explain the importance and we build trust. You can also expect from the training new practices that build collective intelligence, that harness this collective intelligence, a set of tools that are very easy to use. Anybody can use it and play with them and take up leadership through these tools that open up spaces of conversation. You can also you will also feel there will a stronger community. So that's a key result. How to build community, and we use play, we use movement, we use conversations like what are our agreements, and sometimes we use poetry and music. So we try to really blend in culture as well to build community. A shared vision. We will work on what is a shared vision for this community, building off of other visions that have been done, but it'll be a playful exercise to create our own vision. And a set of communication skills that will allow us to move through different situations together. So again, what we're aiming at is leaderful communities. The image I want to leave you with is a flock of geese flying in the sky, where leadership is shared. You know, one geese is flying up front, but then it might get a little bit tired, so the next geese will take over, and that way all together we make sure that the dynamism and the commitment and the vision that we have for our community stays alive. So let me leave it at that. If you have any questions, I'd be glad to take them.
Thank you so much, Ana Maria. So we're going to have a little bit of time at the end for Q&A. So please, any questions that come up on the call, just stick them in the chat box or write them down, and we'll take some time to continue answering those. And Cristania is going to share with us about the community of practice.
Thanks, Dana. Thank you, Ana Maria. So our Art of Hosting trainings will be a really fantastic way to set the foundation for creating spaces that are inclusive and for unpacking some of the barriers we may face, and we're seeking to engage our community stakeholders in our efforts. And we also know this work is ongoing, it's iterative, it's dynamic for all of us, regardless of our experience in community engagement work. So following the trainings, you'll also have the opportunity to continue to work with us through building a community of practice. I know that sometimes community practice, it's kind of a growing technical phrase that you hear more and more, but essentially it describes a group of people who share a passion for something that they do, and then who want to interact with each other regularly to learn how to do it better. So our community practice will focus on building skills, knowledge, collaboration, and homing our abilities around improving community engagement, community development, and civic engagement efforts. So that's the domain that you'll see referenced, I think, in this PowerPoint and elsewhere, is really around our community and civic engagement opportunities. And so our community practice will be open to all of our Art of Hosting participants, which we expect will include our Kachi sites, as well as potentially some non-Kachi sites and staff, hopefully residents and other community representatives and community organizations as well. And it'll build on our specific and general needs as we build lessons, we learn how to grow in this space and create tangible experiences that can help us sustain our progress. So our team right now is working to pre-identify some options or pathways that we can use to guide our shared exploration in this space, so we have a full menu of options that directly relate to your work and your design questions that you bring into the space. And we also know that this may change once we initiate the trainings and start to work through our inquiries as a group. But some of the potential structural components we're discussing and exploring could include affinity groups that might focus around specific topical pathways that you choose to engage your community around. And we can explore a little bit, I can share a little bit of what we're thinking in that regard in just a moment. Access to curated tools and resources, regular calls or workshops, pop-up sessions, skill shares, also having space because it is iterative and it's a living experience to have reflection opportunities and reflection spaces. And then of course, access technical assistance. So we'll be engaging with one another, but also engaging with other experts in the field. And all of this across a shared platform that we'll be identifying and sharing with interested community of practice participants. So just to touch briefly on some of those potential thematic components related to the affinity groups I mentioned previously, we've been exploring some pathways that might facilitate greater inclusion in our work, that can allow our community of practice participants and members the opportunity to focus on specific methods of engagement that they might want to refine. So one group could explore how to better engage specific community groups for partnership like youth. Others can explore how to do community engagement work through art or technology, or how to be really active around policy change. We're pulling together resources around these specific pathways to ensure that we have a robust set of options and correlating technical assistance providers to really meet your needs. So we really encourage you to think through some of the needs that you might have and that might emerge throughout this process. And as you prepare for the Art of Hosting trainings and as you prepare to engage in this process, to really think about what those needs may be, and so we can best build the programming around them. And then finally, and briefly, the last kind of big component that will round out this project is how we tell our story. While we explore in our community of practice and experiment and learn and grow in our work, we want to make sure that these investments and these lessons aren't lost and that we can really document them together and to make our outcomes and our outputs open source for others to use them for their own learning, to broaden our impact, to tell our stories, and to continue to allow our allies and partners to contribute to their learning as well. And also share their lessons to make our sharings more robust. And so I think Carolyn addressed the thinking behind this really well at the very beginning in her opening remarks already. But the final component of this project will be to document and package our work as a community of practice in a way that allows for broader and more collaborative learning. So we're exploring various mediums and methods to use. And again, this will depend on how we convene and how we collaborate as the community practice rolls out. But I think Sue had mentioned earlier, videos, podcasts, briefings as some examples that we might be using to explore how we can create resources for our field and support inclusion and community engagement efforts as a more standard and a more feasible practice overall. So I'll pause here and we'll revisit a little bit more of some of the logistics around the community practice in just a moment, but that's just an overview of those last two components.
Thank you so much, Kristania. Okay, so next slide, Sue, if you don't mind. Oh, there we go. So I'm going to just share briefly with you something called the fourfold practice, which is a foundational framework in the art of hosting conversations that matter. We oftentimes will use this framework to co-create agreements when we're working with groups. And the Kachi site, the Accelerator Kachi site, got a little taste of this yesterday, so it might be a little bit of a repeat, but it's one practice with four folds. And so oftentimes we start at the bottom left where it says being present and hosting yourself. So this framework gives a context for when you are the convening organization, the backbone organization, and when you're coming together with many stakeholders and multi-sector collaborators to work together on complex challenges, this is a really nice foundation and framework to help support you in becoming a community that is learning together. And that's working together as a community of practice for the sake of their larger community. So the first fold is this one called being present. And that's really about, and before I go into being present, at the middle part, oftentimes we put the word purpose at the center. So anytime you're coming together with a larger group to work on complex challenges, there's some large motivating factor or purpose of why you come together in the first place. So the question, or what would sit here in the center, is what is the overarching purpose of us coming together in the first place? What is it we're trying to address? And having that be at the center of everything that we're doing. So whenever we're doing work together, we refer back to the center, the purpose, for whatever it is that we're working on. So this first fold here is about being present. It also says hosting yourself. So this is really about you as an individual leader taking time to reflect, to turn the mirror towards yourself, to, critically looking at some of the lenses that we walk through the world with and wondering whether or not those are the best lenses to be supporting us in our work that we're doing. It's also about self-care. It could be about having a good night's rest, having a good meal, in order to be present with the group that you're working with. So it's really asking questions around, how do I show up as the most impactful leader I possibly can by taking care of myself? So that's the first fold. The second fold is about being a participant. In these types of distributed leadership spaces, sometimes you're a participant, sometimes you're hosting others. Sometimes you're more in the front, and sometimes you're more holding the space, right, for others to be in the front. And so this is a question around what are the principles that are needed for full contribution, for full participation? What is it that each person in the group needs in order to feel as though they can fully contribute their voice and do what it is that they want to be doing within the group? So this wider question around what are the key ingredients to participation lies in that fold. And how do we create the conditions for that as a collective? And then for the next fold, it says host others or contribute. This is when you have an idea that you really care about and you're willing to put a stake in the ground and you're willing to say, I care about this issue and I'm going to invite others into this issue to help me co-create solutions. It's like Napa County and the Food Insecurity Project, where they were convening others to come in and be in the inquiry with each other. So that's another fold. And then the next one is around co-creating and becoming a community of practice, where we have shared language, we have shared practices, tools, ways of speaking about things, frameworks, methodologies that we can use and quickly and effectively get to work and do things more quickly together because we have that shared foundation already. And so when we're doing all of these things, we're both a learning community and we're creating and innovating solutions to the challenges that we're working on. And so how do we widen? How do we take this circle and continue to widen it across our community, invite others into that circle and to be in this process together in a distributed way? So this is one framework we'll be sharing with you at the training and taking a deeper dive into, as well as creating our agreements from that. And so that's one thing we just wanted to share. And before we go into that, we've given you a lot of information. I just want to see if there's one question out there that anybody wants to ask. We'll have more question and answer time in a little bit, but just to see. Okay. So now Sue's going to share another concept that's important to the work, which is around a design challenge.
Great, thanks, Dana. For those that are accelerator sites, you're very familiar with this notion. We are using many different practices, theories, frameworks. And one of the pieces that we use often is a design challenge question. And a design challenge question really is a practice where you would explore, you would look at the insights, what are the needs, what are the opportunities, what are the barriers that are happening, and how do you then take that and frame it into a question that really is speaking to the need that's out there. And usually it starts with a how might we. And what I love about this is and I can't even tell you how much time, it takes a lot of time to really get the right question. And oftentimes you start with the question, but as you go deeper into really looking at what's going on in the systems around you, you may change the question because it's not the right question. This is a question we've put together because really what we are doing is opening up this, and we're very grateful for Blue Shield to allowing this opportunity. And so collectively, the question we're asking is, how might we co-create the conditions to increase and leverage community residents' involvement in shaping the health and well-being of their own communities? So what we're offering to you is essentially a prototype of how we might answer the question through the art of hosting, through community of practice, through telling our stories. What we don't know is that the right answer, right? We know that there is a solution, but we're not saying that we have the answer to it. So it's just a way, it's very different from a normal public health way where you have a logic model that says if you do X, then you do Y and Z will happen. This really is opening up to what are the possibilities that are out there. So we've put this together for the art of hosting in the community of practice. And what we're asking is for those of you that choose to participate is that you come to the art of hosting with this question, with a question that you've worked with your team on. Some of you I know want to bring 5 people, 6 people, whatever it is. So we ask that you come together to think about what is the question that we're really trying to ask together. And that becomes a guidepost for our 3 days together, so that as you're learning practices, you can actually apply that to your design challenge question. So I know we have time at the end for questions, but basically that's part of the pre-work that we mentioned at the beginning, is that we ask each one of you to come prepared with a question, a design challenge question.
Great, thank you so much, Sue. And now Anna Maria is going to just help support in the crafting and reflection around some potential questions.
Okay, so based on what Sue just shared with us of the design question that's overarching for this whole training and community of practice, I invite us all, you all, to take a moment and draft a question that would guide you in your journey in building this community and in providing the support to your community as it's to respond to what is needed right now. So what question could open up an inquiry that will support what is needed in your community right now? What we're gonna do is type the question in the chat box to get a sense of where everybody's at. And in some cases, your check-in question from above, some people checked in, it can be similar because that's what's currently grabbing your attention, that's what's currently alive for you, the questions, the difficulties that you're in the middle of. So take a moment to draft a question that can start by how might we, and see where you go with that. It's a very powerful tool for learning.
And Dana just put that question, our collective one, in the chat box for you to see. I could also, if I was nice, I would put it back up there.
This is not going to be set in stone. It's just a draft question to see where we're at. It'll keep being reworked and revised.
I think Christy, I'm just looking at the chat box from San Diego. You wrote, you actually have a question in here just about how does San Diego ACH support, right, and enhance. So I feel like in some of the pieces where people put in the chat box, you have a beginning of a question there. I don't know if you thought, if that's, you maybe didn't realize that, Christy, while you were writing that.
And as Anna Maria said, these are just drafts. One of the pieces around participatory leadership is stepping up and in and begin practicing. So this is an invitation to practice.
Great. I'll go ahead and read them, Dana. We have, how might we best support efforts to address community identified needs in our region? How might we integrate authentic community resident involvement in all the work we do together to improve health and well-being? Nice. So hopefully you can see, like, just by asking that question, It really puts the possibilities out there, and then your the exploration that you'll be doing through these different practices will really help to refine, is that the right question? Or should it be a different one? And what's the possible solutions with community residents to actually answer that question?
Also, these questions name what you're particularly passionate about. So there could be, really generic and broad questions, but there are also some questions that point to where you want to focus your attention and where you might best be able to contribute. So these questions are also a guide for you to find your way to support your community in a way that feels motivating. Okay, so thank you all for putting some questions there, and for everybody else to reflect on this exercise. This is an ongoing process, and you're welcome to keep working your questions and putting it in the chat box. In the meantime, we're going to start a dialogue, an open dialogue, to see how is this impacting you, what you've heard so far, what aspects of it are you connecting to, how you're relating to all of this, and what would you hope to get out of this training?
Mm-hmm.
And anybody feel free to just jump in. So how is this all landing with you, what we've shared so far? Anything is particularly interesting, or generating questions, or resonating, or not? Oh, we got another question here. How to use community engagement to help communities feel empowered themselves. Beautiful. Seems like people are also still digesting.
Yeah, it's a lot.
So I'm going to call on people if you're okay with that. Want to know, like, let's say, Carrie. Are you there, Carrie?
Mm-hmm.
Can you hear me? She seems muted.
Is that Carrie? Yeah, in Humboldt.
Let me move on to Christy. Christy, can you hear us?
Yes, I can.
I'd love to hear how this is impacting you, or what's resonating with you, or where are you at?
So I think and I think Sue alluded to this. I shared some of my questions, I think, in the chat earlier, but I think it ties in to some of the additional questions that have come up. I feel like in San Diego we have a lot of pieces in place. We have a lot of organizations that are doing community engagement work in different regions of the county, and different organizations taking the lead. And I think we've really been spending some time thinking about how do we support and not duplicate all of that effort. So not stepping on anyone's toes, not trying to take over any pieces, but is there a role that our Accountable Community for Health can play in helping to align and coordinate those efforts for to have the best impact, the most maximum impact on the health of the community. And what's that path to get us from where we are today to a more coordinated and aligned effort. And then also, how does that fit into the overall accountable community for health infrastructure for us? So we have a work group, a new work group that has formed, our community resident engagement work group, which is some really amazing community leaders. And how do we best use that work group to get input to inform the work of the ACH, and a lot of questions coming up for us around governance. I think somebody mentioned before, integrating this work into decision-making and governance. How do we integrate that community voice into the governance and decision-making of the ACH? So those are just some of the questions that we're grappling with. And so those are the things that are coming up for me.
Thank you so much. This is very helpful for all of us. Anybody else before I call on someone?
Sue Kincaid answered here. Do you want me to read it, Ana Maria?
Yeah.
So Sue Kincaid in Fresno, to get out of the training, how to get the rest of the ACH on board with resident involvement and prepare all of us for creating those conditions that will serve the community best. Thank you, Sue.
Yeah, thanks.
And I just want to name, I think Sue mentioned this earlier, is that a lot of the training is for us to actually learn by doing, by being in these specific questions that you have. These questions that you're posing here, that we don't necessarily say this is the answer, but what we do is we create the conditions for us to be exploring them together. And through our conversations, through being together and learning together, a next level of wisdom comes through, right? Because we're in conversation together. So it's this newness that comes out of being in dialogue together around these questions that we learn to figure out the pathway forward.
Let me hear from Larry.
I'm trying to process. I didn't anticipate that the art of hosting training was going to be about engaging community residents. So I'm trying to process that. I mean, I understand it, but it was not what I thought it was going to be. So that's useful because I now understand that.
Thank you, Larry. What about Justin?
Getting my camera and everything online here. Well, in Lake County and our under-resourced community, our biggest challenge is not owning all of the projects. We are the backbone. Adventist Health is the backbone institution. Started our Health Rising collaborative a few years ago, and now it's grown. But enabling and scaffolding up community leaders to take on projects and take ownership of projects to move those forward, so that we're not resource poor or spread too thin, but just building up our community. That's our major goal for community leaders.
For all of you to give us a taste of what you are in the middle of, so that we can attune our curriculum and our orientation around specifically that. So now Kristania is going to lead us on our next piece.
Thank you, everyone. So I'm just going to walk us through some of just the logistics and to kind of make sure everyone's on the same page around the art of hosting trainings, where they'll be, who they will include, and some of those components. And so hopefully you've seen some of the materials, but we will have 2 art of hosting trainings. One will be in Northern California. So if that part of the state is more accessible and feasible for you, We invite you to join us at Napa County Health and Human Services, November 1st through 3rd. If Southern California is feasible, the second training will be held in Los Angeles at La Plaza de Cultura y Artes. It's very close to Union Station, so if you're coming from other areas, hopefully it's feasible in that respect. And that'll be held from November 30th to December 2nd. All of these trainings, we're estimating the days will roughly go from 9 to 5. And we'll be continuing to refine that as the programming becomes solidified in response to your needs and your feedback as we continue to go through how best to serve you in this process. You can see the web registration link just there on your screens in the PowerPoint. We do ask that you do make every effort to register by September 20th. I know it's only 2 days from this info session, but we ask that you do that so that it allows us to determine the capacity we have to open the trainings to other partner organizations, to include residents and other members who we think can contribute to these conversations and help us create a very robust space and robust training experience. So that September 20th deadline is important to make note of. But we've got that there. And we noted earlier, it might be a little confusing because in the link, it does say Vermont. Well, we might try to change it.
I don't know why it says that. It's so weird.
Yeah, but just trust, that's the right one. You can use that one to register. And I'm sure there's probably information there as well. If you have questions, to contact, our team, and we can probably navigate any of those things. And I don't know if anyone has any feedback around if someone needs to have their full team to register at once, or if one person can register for multiple folks. But I think probably to make it easier, it might be best to have a good sense of who would come with you from your ACH, and it may make it easier to maybe design your question together, but also to have make registration just be a little bit more seamless. Back to sort of the registration component, just in terms of who we're inviting to our community practice, that's also informed by who comes to these trainings. We are looking to focus it around our Kachi sites and your needs, but also seeing how we can bridge and invite and create a space that includes partners and residents and others, all working together to build skills around community engagement, civic engagement, and sort of noticing again that domain area of being really around community inclusion in our work. And then for those who are interested in working with us through that community of practice, or even just exploring what that can look like, do a quick screen share so you can take a look and see what that process will be. And I'll share another resource that can help you navigate, I think, the bigger scope, but also that specific component as well.
Okay, so Chris, I'll stop and then you can start.
Sure. Perfect. So hopefully you guys can all see this, our preliminary community engagement practice lab participation packet. As I mentioned, this kind of looks at the bigger scope, but then also really homes in on some of those specifics for the community of practice, and it has instructions for how you can express interest in that. So it's a draft document. So as I scroll through, you'll see some comments and things from our staff as we're continuing to refine it, but it gives you a good sense of what we have here, and it's a good resource for you to refer back to as you continue to go through the art of hosting and then afterwards. So what you'll find here is some background information and some other components that are still being refined. Want kind of a refresher on what we discussed earlier, some of the background with Carolyn and that Sue had also shared. You'll find some things in there, as well as definitions. We'd mentioned that our community practice can be a shared space where we operate around shared definitions and explore, really how we play in this space. So we've got a couple of sort of grounding themes and some language there that can help us refine that. Some information on the art of hosting. I think there are other resources that you can find as well when you look at the registration, and there are other links in the invitation. There are links as well that you'll see that can help you walk through those components. A little bit of a refresher on the design challenge. And so all those components as they come together in our community of practice that will build on the art of hosting. We've got a couple of things I highlighted because I was looking at them earlier. As we sort of structural components of our community of practice, how will
it's moving. Are you going through it?
I am. Oh, is this stagnant for you guys? I am scrolling through it.
Yeah. For some, at least on my screen, it's not moving.
How about for others? Let me check the chat. Maybe I've missed something.
Nope, it's not moving for me.
I'm so sorry. Okay, how about this? I'm going to go out of screen share and then we'll hop back in and we'll see if it kind of works out a kink or something. Sorry, everybody. All right. Are you guys on page, do you see our theory of change, or is it still at the top?
It's still saying it started screen sharing.
Oh no. Okay, we'll do a verbal walkthrough and we will.
Do you have it? Do you want to try and screen share it?
Yeah, does anyone else want to take a peek?
I could try.
Sure, let me stop sharing very quickly and then someone else can pop in. My apologies. I was like going through in a groove.
I know.
I'm like, as you see here, everyone's like, no.
Okay.
Okay, great. Dana, I can see your screen share and I can see it moving. So I think that's
Okay,
great.
good.
It's a good sign. So Dana's hopped in where I mentioned that there are some core definitions that we can use to build our collective work around. Again, some other details around the art of hosting. Let's go all the way down a couple more. Some great images in case you want to kind of refresh on the domain and some of the logistics around the community of practice. Some of our design challenges, some key components that we'll be integrating throughout the community of practice. And then of course that final component of how we tell and disseminate our stories. We have a theory of change in here that I think could be helpful that looks at kind of the bigger scale, short-term, long-term components, and really that change making that we're hoping to facilitate through this process. I think could be helpful for some context setting. We've got some beginning elements of community operating guidelines, which I think we'll continue to add to and kind of perhaps make more robust as we continue to work together and have a kind of our full sense of who will be at the table and how we'll work together and how we can best facilitate meaningful collaboration in that way. But I think what I really want to point out, and Dana, this is page 13, are our community practice membership intentions. And this is something we'll ask you to take a look at. Scroll up just a little bit more.
Keep going up.
A little bit down.
Sorry.
It's just right after this section. So
keep going down.
A little bit down.
Yeah, keep going, Dana. Yeah, there, right?
There we go. So our membership intentions. So we understand that not everyone will know if they want to sustain engagement with this community of practice at the onset, but our hope is that after the art of hosting trainings, and particularly if you have a design question in mind and you really have a vision for how you might want to pursue and refine that, that this is a way that you can express your intentions to become a part of our community of practice and to continue to explore with our team. So you'll notice there's a due date of December 6th. So it's a bit of time after the initial trainings, a little bit less time for Southern California. So it might be helpful to take a look at this prior to the trainings and have a really good sense of how you might want to participate. And if that's something that you like to pursue, this gives you a sense of the questions you would ask. We would ask just basic things. We would ask about if they're countryside or not, so we can best prepare for that. Your design challenge question. And it might, again, evolve throughout the training. So wherever it may be at that present stage, share, because that helps us really decide how best we can tailor that community of practice to your ongoing needs and who we bring in and how we start to structure that space. And then just some other considerations around, how we form them, how we're engaging residents and where we're at. So it's a good tool for us to have a good sense of how to tailor that to you. And it's your way to express intention and interest in becoming a part of the community of practice. And then again, those pathways that I'd mentioned, those more topical pathways are noted there at the bottom, and you can share with us your interest in pursuing any of those as well. So that's a great resource, and I think as it gets refined and sort of we get some of our little kind of kinks out of the way, we'll be able to share that with you so that you can take a look at that and fully utilize it leading up to the trainings and then of course afterwards. Should we pause for questions? I think there's a couple things in the chat, so maybe we should take a look at those.
They're thank yous.
That's always good.
Yeah, so.
So we're just going to take time right now for the rest of the call to answer any questions and answer anything that might be coming to you now. So you could either put them in the chat box or speak.
If someone's not certain if they're registered or not, do we have a good contact person or process for them to confirm?
Yep, there's Brian.
Yep. Folks can call or email me if they have questions about registration confirmation.
Great.
Brian,
Thanks,
do you mind putting your email address in the chat so folks can get it right, just in case they haven't seen communications from you yet?
That's a great idea. Thanks.
Thank you, Brian.
Thanks.
And of course, you can reach out to us via email if there's any questions or anything that you think of after our call today. And if you have a question, you can still chime in and bring it in. Otherwise, we just ask you to share how you're leaving the call. So you could either put it in the chat box or speak it to the group as we conclude.
Mm-hmm. I can share. I'm very grateful for this opportunity and to have a great team. So, yeah.
Agreed.
Christania's excited to collaborate and learn from everyone.
I could just speak. Yes, I am.
Great. And Nicole, looking forward to the training and learning how to be a better community engager. Great. Grateful tool two for, I don't have my glasses on, has an exclamation point for the support and opportunity. Great. Okay. Appreciative of the team's willingness to provide a preview of the training. Yep. Yeah, and if there's any follow-up questions, if something's not clear, you know, please let us know. One thing, Dana, that you didn't say, or Anna Maria, just as you were, because yesterday we talked about it on our accelerator call, is just you're not going to be sitting at a desk, right? You're up, you're moving, you're sitting, you're doing all kinds of things. So I think just know going in, it's you know, it's action learning, right? Where you're taking that design challenge and you really want to be in that inquiry, you know, for that time. So I don't know if you want to add anything just in closing, but just wanted to make sure people knew that. So thanks.
Yeah,
Excited.
I'm excited for the diversity that I can see in this call, learning from all of you and having lots of fun while learning powerful tools. And as Sue said, this is going to be it's learning by doing, as we've mentioned, and it's fun, seriously fun.
Great. Okay.
All right, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us.
Yeah. Thanks, Carolyn.
Thank you, Carolyn.
Yes.
Thank you all.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.